Hello guys, Nigel here. This is part 2 of the video, and I know it's unusual for me to start off a build with a face-to-face chat, but I realised that when I tried to show you how to put these tracks together in my last video, it was kind of, this is how you do it, and see, there you go. So I thought what I'd do is, for the start of this video, I'll just go over that again before I do finish the tracks, and sort of show you with the camera on an angle looking in from the side so you can see what I'm talking about. Because I must be honest, here's one side of the tracks all done, and I got to be honest, they're fine. They haven't fallen apart once. So obviously I haven't pulled them. I'm not going to try and break them. You know, it's a sort of 0.2mm diameter pin in there, which is about half a millimeter long. It's obviously going to be easy to snap if you try to snap it, but you know, they're really nice, and they're going to form around the wheels and everything lovely. So I'm not going to glue them, I'm just going to leave them like that and use them from the kit. So let me move the camera now, and I'll show you how they how I've put them together without damaging them at all, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so hopefully you'll get a better idea of what I'm talking about here. What I'm basically trying to say is, what you could do is come along. You've got this, you can see in here, there's a tiny little pin here below my finger, and that's the pin you've got to try and avoid snapping off. So once you've made up a few parts, what you do is you put these in the jig like so. So your first hole is lining up there with that pin. And then what I'm going to do is use a pair of tweezers to hold this down. And then what I'm doing is, rather than putting this just down on top and just pushing it down, what I'm doing is coming in from the side, as you can see here, and there's a piece of flash on there, it would be, wouldn't it? Get off. Right. So I'm coming in here and pushing in from the side. Whoops. I'm trying to get you so you can see this. I'm just coming down and clipping it into that. Then grab that one with the tweezers. Again, come along like so. Push down. Come along like so. Push down. And it's as easy as that. And then doing it this way, what you're doing is you're avoiding breaking that pin off. You're not putting any stress on it at all, because you're kind of putting the part onto it and then levering it down. And then I'm just going to put the top cover on, come along with my 6 pins, push them in, take the jig off, and then I'm going to come along with my side cutters, or nippers should I say, and just basically nip these off like so. And there we go, there's our track, all free and running. And obviously I'm not going to try and pull it apart, but don't need to. You need to be careful of the little bits of flash there are on these tracks. Okay, so that's basically what I was trying to show you earlier, so hopefully in that little clip you could see it. So now I'm going to move on, get these tracks done, and then I'll come back to you with something else. Right, so we've got the tracks all done, as I've showed you, and now this is like 24 hours later, so all these parts have pretty much gone off. And as we can see, as I showed you earlier, we've got some horrible seams and bits and pieces. This here I've struggled today. I found them eventually. I was wondering if these were sort of rods that go across, do it like long bolts or something, because I was going to replace them with strip. They're not, they're actually square sort of bars just welded on, so they look as though they're welded or maybe bolted on. But so yeah, if you just put some Mr. Surfacer over them, and then we can clean them up. Or what you could do is cut them off and add some plastic strip, because they are quite a definite sort of square section. But we'll see how they look. If they don't look any good, what we'll do is cut them out and put some plastic strip in. But again, they are quite, the bits will sit here and here, so they are quite visible. There's no real detail going on up here. I'm just looking at my computer now. There's no real detail going on up there. There is a weld seam down here, and there's a weld seam across there. If you want to add that, you can. I probably won't bother. Now what I'm going to do is, with this lovely Infinity, I keep calling him Infinity 400 flat sanding stick. I'm just going to take off any sort of lumps. In fact, I might be better off here with a skinny stick. Just get in there. We've got some rivet detail on there, so be careful not to sand that away. I'm just going to basically go around and remove the sprue nibs that I left on there. Any excess material, just sand that away. And as we can see, this is all nice and dried solid now. Do the same on this one. Just remove the raised areas. Thank you for your comments, guys. I know this kit has got a lot of interest. Obviously, a lot of you guys out there are quite interested in the subject for various reasons. One of them being a particular airliner, but I'm not going to get into that because I don't know how it stands today, but I'm not sure it was ever actually proved that it was one of these that shot it down, so I'd rather not risk commenting on it, to be honest. Here we've got some sprue nibs there to come off. In fact, what I'll do is I will come in with my knife and just trim them away. There we go, that's that one done. I've got a feeling there's a block goes on here. That's the block with the vinyl pipes in it, so we won't be too fussy about getting this all pretty and dead flat and everything. But what I am going to do, well, I'll let you guys guess. What do you think I'm going to use on these seams? I mean, woe betide. I mean, far be it for me to say I'm going to use Mr. Surfacer, but that's what I'm going to use. I know you think I use it very much, and it's not one of my preferred products, but yeah, I use Mr. Surfacer on pretty much everything. And you may be wondering why I haven't glued these ends on. It's so much easier to deal with this seam with the ends off, because then you can just sand it. If you glue the ends on, you're trying to get into nooks and crannies all the time. So I'm just going to deal with that now, that one, and then we can glue it together afterwards and get it sorted then. So that we don't need them. All I'm going to do is get some Mr. Surfacer on these seams, let that dry for a few hours, and then we'll start looking at sanding it back. Right, I've got Mr. Surfacer 1000 here, and as you know, it's a product that I use all the time. You can get it from there, from Premium Hobbies, which is where I started getting mine from. And basically, you can see this has thickened up a lot. When you get Mr. Surfacer 1000 new, it's quite thin. Now this is almost to the thickness of 500 now. So if I want to thin it back a bit, I can put some self-leveling thinners in there, or Mr. Colour thinners. But what I'm going to do is paint this on. Paint this onto this joint, like so. And there we go. That's that done, and then we're going to paint some along here. Now we've got those mould, where the mould shut lines are, we've got to get rid of them, so I'm going to brush over them as well. And as I say, this area here is quite visible between the missiles. When you look at the missiles, you're going to be looking at it like that. This is actually looking straight at you. So worth getting it right. And also this whole area is sort of sunken down a bit because of the complex moulding. Somebody commented in part one of this build about the quality of Meng, and I must agree. When you actually look at the old days, some of the first Meng kits, I mean, that green plastic they used was particularly awful, but the quality of their moulding, the quality of their kits was quite amazing. And it does seem that, like when they did that 911 truck, it all sort of seems to have gone to pot a bit. It's they seem to have gone downhill, to be honest. They were, you know, extremely highly thought of manufacturer. In fact, I they're one of my favourites. I mean, I've got a lot of their kits, but I must be honest, the way it's going, things seem to be getting worse, if you like. If you look at these mould seams all on here, you know, they didn't used to be that way. So yeah, so I'll go on and get all the rest of this done, and then I'll come back to you once it's dry and we'll look at getting it all sanded down. Right, here we are. So Mr. Surfacer is all dried on here now. I've given it a quick coat over again with 1200 because it's a very fine surface primer, and you can see here what I've done. I've replaced those horrible moulded ribs with some plastic strip, and I think you'll agree they look a lot better now. It's a lot sharper and crisper. If you look up, I'm afraid I can't put the photographs up for you because they're copyright protected, but if you do a Google search for I put in BUK walk around and then go sort of, I don't know, halfway down, and you'll see some very, very sharp images, and they've got Getty Images written all over them. So have a look at those, click on that, and there's about 5 or 6 pictures of this, and you're kind of looking, if you like, you know, straight at the missiles, and you can see the sort of firing mechanism and everything there. It's a great couple of photographs for doing this. So go take a look. But you'll see in there that these are actually sort of sharp pieces of square section steel ribs that I thought they would have been studs, but they're not. So the tracks are done. There's both sets of tracks in here. I love them. They're very flexible. They're really, really nice. They're great, and I'm really, really chuffed. And if I'm showing you this again, I think I already showed you this about 2 minutes ago, but 2 minutes ago is like 48 hours ago for me. So there we go. They're really, really nice, and I'm really chuffed with them, and they work beautifully, and they're going to sag and do everything they're supposed to do beautifully. So I've got those there in an old dog food tray. Keep those out of the way. These parts here, again, Mr. Surfacer, and all these gaps all around these bits at the back here. It's unfortunate. The way this kit is going together at the moment, the fit is okay, but the seam lines and the mould lines and the actual, like here, what they've done on the back, I'll just point this out with a cocktail stick. You can see here, this circle here, what they've done is rather than mould it in 2 halves, they've moulded the whole circle in 1 half and then put like a semicircular cutout in the other half. So it kind of, that's the circle, and then the other half goes around it like that. And the gap around there is massive. So that's taken quite a lot of work to get that nice. And being in such a sort of obvious place, I want to make sure it's right. So now the tracks are done, we can start looking at all these wheels and suspension and stuff. So I'm going to look at getting these wheels together. Now all the wheel parts are coming on sprue A, and you can see, so I'm going to start here with the idlers because they're already half off the sprue, and then I'm just going to carry on and get all these wheels built up, and then we'll look at getting all the suspension together, and then we can get these torsion bars in. And then when it comes to fitting the idlers, these spindles for the idlers, as I've said so many times, we can put the track on, tension the idler, glue it in position when we know it's in the dead right spot. So I'll go on and get these wheels done, and then I'll come back to you when I've got them assembled and I'm going to start doing the cleanup. Just want to pass on another little one of my tips here, guys. With these Meng kits, you get these poly caps, and they are a type of vinyl. And then you also get these vinyl parts in a lot of Meng kits as well. Now there is a difference in these materials. As we all know, you get some kits with rubber tracks that can be glued with your Tamiya extra thins. Some can't. Now this just to test, so you know what you're doing, where you're coming from. This material here, I can brush this extra thin on here and it does nothing. You can see the brush isn't changing colour, nothing's happening. It's just going to stay on there and eventually evaporate. Okay, and it's going to do absolutely nothing. So basically what that means is when we glue the wheels together, we don't need to worry about the glue getting on the poly caps. So what we can do is just slip the poly cap in there, and then we can put the wheel on. Yeah, and what I generally do now is just pinch it apart like that, and then put some glue in let the capillary action do the rest, and then give it a little tweak. And basically, I've got glue on my fingers. Basically what you should do is get those scallops lined up. Okay, so that's that idler done. You'll also notice I haven't cleaned up the sprue nibs. Reason for that is it's much easier to do them once you've got them. Where's my sanding stick? Here's my 400 grit sanding stick. Once you've got them glued together and the glue's gone off of it, I'll just do a little bit here. I'll wait for them to go hard before I do anything. Is you can go over the wheel like so and remove the sprue nibs from both sides. Now the other thing is these idlers would have been parallel, they'd be cylindrical. Now these parts are actually tapered, probably because they've put a draft in the mold tool so that the parts would be ejected easily. So what I'm doing here is just gently sanding around. You can see I'm staying at 45 degrees, and this is, like I say, a 400 grit sanding stick, so it's not going in there and tearing it up or anything. And I'm just going round and just cleaning it up. And it's stuff like this that makes your tank models look, or tracked vehicles look heavy. If you have, you know, tapered wheels and stuff, and you leave mold seams on tires and things like that, for me they always look as though they're kind of stood on tiptoes. If you sand them away, if you get them nice and parallel, another way to do this is to take a Sharpie or a magic marker or something and mark around on the wheel, and then what you can do is come along with your sanding stick, sand away your sprue nibs. Alright, and then you can go around. Of course, the other option is, if you're lucky enough, like me, have a lathe, you could do it on the lathe. But today is Thursday the 14th of November, and it is absolutely bucketing down outside, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's some local flooding. But there we go, we can sand away now, and we can see that what we've done, we've got the idlers are cylindrical now. So just take away the dust, and we can see we've got them cylindrical rather than being like that. So basically what I'm saying is, when we look across the wheel like that, basically the two wheels are parallel like this on their face that rolls against the track, rather than like that. And maybe if I put these together you can see the difference. In fact, this might be a good way to show it. Is when you put them together like that, you can see they're not actually parallel, they're kind of tapered, they're only touching on their very outside corners. So what I'm after is getting them absolutely flat, so that if I take a straight edge something like this, when you look at it where I've sanded it, it's absolutely flat and not tapered away. I hope you can see that. Let me just check that you can. You can see there where it's not sanded, it's kind of tapered out. Okay, you can see it's where it is sanded, it lies flat on the surface. Okay, so that's one tip. But then the other thing I want to talk about is, I know that polycap in there is not going to be affected by the glue because of the test. Now when it comes to these vinyl pipes and stuff, we can do a little test here. You can see on the back here it says PS, so that's polystyrene. And what we can do is brush this on, and you will see that the brush will start to turn black. That means it's attacking it. So you can glue this, you can get rid of mold seams or whatever using your Tamiya extra thin. Likewise, you don't need to worry about getting glue on these, it won't glue them. Now I notice there's a couple of polycaps here, so we need, when we come to use those, we need to be careful not to get any glue on them, because otherwise it'll actually melt in with the model. So I'm going to get the rest of these wheels together and then I'll come back. Just a little observation in this kit, guys. Once again, ejector pins flash. We've got ejector pins in the back of the wheels here. You can see them there where I've sanded them. They're obviously not visible on the built model, but they're a bit of a pain when you're building, and you need to make sure you at least sand them flat on this flat mounting face, because some of them actually interfere. So just put your wheels together and check they go together parallel, and make sure that the ejector pin marks or the tabs around them aren't actually pushing your parts apart. When you come to gluing them, put your poly cap in. You want a nice big drop of glue on your brush around there. Put some glue, let it flow around much like a wash does, and then just quickly get the wheels together and then just squeeze them together, and that's them. So that's all of those done. Now I need to get the sprockets done. Another little tip for you guys with sprockets: when you glue them together, obviously you get some movement between the two, as you can see there. So what I do to make sure everything's in line, in this case I'm using a cotton bud because it fits in there nicely. You could use a piece of plastic rod or anything, but we know we've all got a cotton bud. And you can see here, when we look down, we can see when we put it against the rule, we can see the cotton bud is not square to the rule. So I'm just going to give this a twist, go back a touch. Now we can see now that cotton bud is held between those sprockets, and now it's parallel to that. See that line where that 5 is? You can see that the cotton bud is now parallel to that. Come back a touch more. That went the wrong way. There we go. Now you can see that it's parallel, so you know that your tracks are going to fit on there absolutely fine. And then I'm just going to put some more extra thin on there. And then I'll do the same with this one. This one has gone a bit more solid. I'll just check it. Yeah, it needs to go a touch that way. And now we can see that's parallel. Okay, so I'll put a drop more extra thin around that one. And that's just another little tip for you guys. The other thing you can do is to mount them and put a straight bar across, something like that. But I always find that's an easier way. Just hold a cotton bud in there, get it on a rule. You can do it on the metric side or the imperial side, and all you're looking for is having the cotton bud square to that face, perpendicular to that face, and then you know when you put your tracks on, everything's going to line up. And let's just have a quick look how the tracks look on these, and they are lovely. There we go. You can see they go on there absolutely lovely with no issues whatsoever. And that's just a little tip you can carry forward onto all your tracked vehicle models. And all the wheels are together, so that's all that done. Yeah, so you can see all that here. So I've been basically taking parts off the sprue and cleaning them up. These are the final drives for the gearboxes. These are the pivots for the idlers. I shouldn't have taken them off until I'm ready to put the wheels on, but never mind, they're off now. Then we've got these, I'm not sure if there's some sort of bump stop or shock absorber. So they're handed per side. So we've got A7s going down this side, and then we've got A8 on the other side. Then we've got these little eyelets here that go on the front and the back of the tub. Then there's these hooks that are going to go on the rear end here. So this is the back, and then we've also got the little return rollers there, which I'm not going to glue on, and unfortunately don't go on very tight. They're like a fall-on fit. They will just fall off, so we'll have to put those on with a bit of blue tack or something when it comes to tensioning the tracks. So as you know, the wheels are all assembled and then go off now. So what I'm going to do now is go on and add these little bits and pieces, and then we can look at building up the torsion bars. Now I've taken off the parts off the sprue and cleaned them all up, and you can see here we've got A, B, C and D. We've got 4 different types of torsion bar. So we've got A52, 53, 54 and 55. So I've got them 52, 53, 54, 55 like that, so I know what's what, and then I can actually lay them down then A, B, C, D. It's unfortunate, you need to sort of stay on top of this, because you'd have thought they'd have had 52 as A, 53 as B, which they have, but then they've got 54 as C and 55 as A. So just be a little bit careful not to get mixed up with your A, B, C's and your 52, 53, blah blah blah. But if you do get mixed up, you can see on the images, like for instance on the 55, which is the back one, you can see that it's got the little lug sticking out on the top here. You can see the little lug rather than having a plain radius over the top. But then I'm not quite sure what differentiates that. Okay, so we've got a 55 has the semicircular cutout for the torsion bar is that way up. 54 also has the lug, but you can see when you turn it over, the actual semicircular cutout goes the wrong way. So that's how you can identify your parts if you should just get them off and get them mixed up. But also you get 2 of each of these on each sprue. So if you take them off, where's the one with them left? If you take them off and you leave one of each on the sprue, you've got 52, 53, 54, 55. If you leave these on, you can, if you do get them mixed up, you can always go and identify. Now I know this is 55, but I can see it's got the lug on the top there. The semicircular cutout goes that way, so I know that's 55. These two don't have the lug, so I know it's not those two. That one has the lug, but the semicircular cutout is the other way. So there we go. So that's how you can identify your parts. If you leave those on, you won't get mixed up. So we're going to move on to step 2, and I'm going to fit these bits and pieces on, and then I'll be back. Right, they're all done now. Just worth noting for the newer, younger modelers out there, these hooks, these loops, they fit. They're very, very loose fit in their holes. So put them in with a tiny drop of glue, and then once they're in, if you get a straight edge and just stroke it across, you can get them all then lined up and perfect, because that's how they would have been. I know it's Russian, I know it's military, but they would have been. And also I would advise putting these hooks on after these, and then you can do the same on there. You can use a straight edge to get them in. The other thing, of course, you can do is use something like a card, a credit card, or I've got a card here. You could just slide that up in like that, and that will help you. It'll get in that gap, and that will get them nice and parallel, like so. So that's that done now. Those little shock absorbers or whatever they are on the sides. They're on the sides there. Got the 3 hooks there, the 2 hooks there, and the 2 hooks there, and then we've got the final drive casings there on the back. I've also put an arrow in here because it's not very obvious when you're building this, when you're looking at it, which is front and which is back. Now they're on, I suppose we know that's the rear end, but I want to make sure we get all the arms in right and everything. So let's get on and get these torsion bars built up. So letter A, all the actual torsion bars are the same. They're all A29, and they're all off the sprues and cleaned up. I haven't bothered de-seaming down the sides because they're going to be totally invisible. So A is 55, which we know is this one. So I'm going to use a 29 and a 55, and we'll see how these go together. And it's not a tight fit or anything. So what we need to do is make sure we've got these nice and square. Now if you actually look at the arm, it's actually angled out. So what we need to do is make sure we've got the actual torsion bar and the spindle parallel in 2 planes. So look at it that way, it needs to be straight. Look at it that way, it needs to be straight. So the best way to do that, I'm guessing, is on your board, lay it down, get the torsion bar running up that line, and look at that, it's exactly 10 millimeters by the look of it. So it looks like you can just use your board and get everything nice and straight, and then do that side by eye, perhaps look down the length of it, whatever. But we want to make sure they're all nice and straight, and perhaps I would suggest in this instance using the quick setting, because that way they won't move around when you put it back down on the bench, whereas with the extra thin it will take that extra little while to dry. So there we go, lay that down on the bench, get the torsion bar in line with that line, and then you want the spindle in line with that one, just to make sure the wheels are all going to sit nice and straight. Okay, so I'll go on and get the others done. Yeah, it's a shame they're not a tighter fit on that spindle, but they can always be tweaked about a bit afterwards once they're done. So that is a letter A, so I'm going to put that one there, and we'll go A, B, C, D across the table. Alright, another little tip coming up for you, and then we're going to call it a day for part 2, I think. So I've got all the torsion bars together, as you can see there, and once the glue goes off they are pretty strong, but I would be tempted, as I'm going to do, to leave those a good 12 hours, let them really harden off, because they're going to be quite soft. There's no real good contact there. It's a shame they didn't go a bit deeper with the D section or have it a tighter fit. Not really that impressed with that, to be honest, but it is what it is. I just hope they're going to be strong enough to support the weight of the thing and not just snap off once it's all in there. I did have a look at these idler mounts, which are part A58 on both sides, and they basically go in, as I said before, and you've got a tab on there and a slot in there, so they go in, so you've really got no choice about where your track tension goes, which is what I've been saying all along. I keep repeating myself about not gluing it in, and then you can adjust it to sort your track tension. So I tried it in there, and as you can see, to coin an English phrase, it's like a prick in a top hat or a sausage in a bowler. It is absolutely ridiculous how loose that is. You've got no chance of getting your wheel nice and square or getting a strong joint. So I measured it up, and basically this is about 4mm, and this it's about 4.2. So let's have another little check on that. I think it was about 4.2 from memory. Yeah, 4.28. So it's a good sort of 0.3 millimeters bigger than that, so it's not a very good fit at all. So what I've done is get some plastic card. This is 5 thou plastic card, so basically it's going to be 0.25 on diameter, because you've got 5 thou per side, 0.125 per side. So just push that in there like that, and what it is, it's cut to 12.5 millimeters long, because I did a bit of maths, yeah, and 4 times 3.125 3.142, sorry, is going to give you about 12.5mm long. So cut to 12.5mm long, and then what you can do is force the ends apart, and they should snap in like so, and you'll end up with a full circle in there. Okay, and then just with the side of something flat, just nudge it down, make sure it's in there nice and square, and then I'm going to put some quick setting extra thin around it, and then that will go in there, and I'll leave that now for an hour or so to dry, go hard, and then I can sand the top off flush. I've done this side already. Here's one I prepared earlier, and as you can see now, we put the idler in, and it's a tight push-in fit. It stays there, there's no wobble, there's no play. So what I can do now is cut that lug off, and then it will give me, if I need to, and if I want to tension the track, I can, and I've got a nice snug fit that's going to hold the idler nice and square, and not have it all wobbling around. Okay, so there's my little tip for a Thursday, and I'll just give you just sand a little bit more off of there. I'll give you a little close-up of how that looks. Okay, so you can see that piece of plastic card is in there, and this is it as glued. And I'll just leave that to go off, and then I'll sand it, and then we'll get a nice push fit on those idlers. So that was 5 thou plastic card I used there, guys. If you don't have any 5 thou, you could probably use 10 thou and just put it round one side, which will just pull your idler off centre, which isn't a big issue. But by far the best bet is going to use 5 thou, and then what you can do then is just push a 4mm drill in there, and you can make sure that it's all going to fit nice and snug, and make sure that everything is going round. So there we go. So in part 2 we talked about the tracks. I showed you the tracks are done. We've looked at the torsion bars, we've looked at the idler carriers, we've done the Mr. Surfacer and sanding seams and getting rid of those horrible pieces on there. Again, all around these, a lot of sanding, Mr. Surfacer, and joint cleaning. I've got the wheels together. I've decided I'm going to do these on my lathe. They've got this lovely moulded on tread pattern, which is absolutely fine if you're depicting a brand new vehicle that's never seen dirt. I personally don't like it. I would rather just have flat, because the other thing is, you can see, as with the idlers, these wheels have got a taper on them. I'm not sure if I can show you here. yeah, you can see there is a taper. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to make up an aluminium bung that will be the same diameter as the inside of that, and then I'll put that on the aluminium bung on the lathe, bring the tailstock up, hold them together, and then just let friction do the rest. And I'll just turn the outsides of those just to square them up and get them all perfectly round. If you don't have a lathe, you could probably stick a drill backwards. Not really sure what sort of size drill you need. Let's have a look. Just in case you are getting this kit, you can prepare yourself up front. There we go, so that goes on there nicely. The trouble is you've got this issue, it's just going to spin because it's got a poly cap in there. You really need something that's going to press into the bore tightly, and let's give that a measure. Yeah, that's 2.27, which is, so that's like a 0.1 inch drill. So what you could do is wrap some masking tape perhaps around a drill, force that in there, hold it in your drill, spin it round and whatever. Or you could just go for the old-fashioned method of just getting them like this and sanding them and going like that. But I'm fortunate, I've got a lathe, so I'm going to use it. So I'm not going to be doing that today because it is horrible outside, as I said earlier. So I'll get that done perhaps tomorrow. So that's part 2 done. In part 3 we'll get these torsion bars in, get the idlers held on with some blue tack or something, and then we'll look at getting our tracks tensioned, and then we can look at moving on forward there. I also want to start getting all this together, and then we can look at then, you see, once we get these parts here glued onto these, so that's these parts here glued onto these, then we can let that go solid and let that go really hard and deal with the seam. One other thing I've noticed, I have sanded here, there were some horrible ejector pin marks on these parts, and I have actually managed to remove from here, I've actually managed to remove 2 bolt heads, so I need to replace them because they go in there like that, and you can see there is a cutout. You can see there's a cutout where the bolt head should be, so that's going to be quite obvious. And again, once they're together, we'll go around, I think, with some Mr. Surfacer and get that all seam free. Basically, when the model's built, you're going to see that like that, I believe. No, it's that way up, isn't it? It's that way up, and then you're going to have your missiles sat like this either side. So all this side is going to be visible, but if it's up, then this side's going to be visible too, because you'll have the back side to look at as well, or the front side, should I say. So there we are. Oh, one other thing, the missiles are together. Round here you've got these discs. You can see here we've got a moulded in dimples. So what I've done there, I've put Mr. Surfacer in there, I'll let it go hard, then I'll wipe it over with alcohol, and that should give us the same look as those dimples then, and then we can work on the seams afterwards with the sanding. So as you can tell, my voice is going at the moment. I need to go and get a drink of tea or something. And yeah, so thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for all your valued comments and some of your not so valued comments. You know what I'm talking about. And I'll see you very, very soon with part 3. Oh, one last thing I want to say to you. It's become apparent from a couple of the political websites I've been watching, it looks like that YouTube seem to be going through this phase of cancelling people's subscriptions. So a lot of people are saying that all of a sudden they're losing subscribers, and then you've also got subscribers are saying they've stopped receiving notifications. I think the same is happening to me, because for the last few days my subscriber count seems to be darting around a lot. It sort of goes up 20 one day and then goes down 12 the next day, and then the next day it doesn't change at all, and then the next day it goes up 25. It seems to be a bit weird. It usually just sort of goes up a few a day steadily. Obviously I'm going to lose subscribers and obviously I'm going to gain them, but it does seem that in the balance of things it seems a little strange, unless of course, you know, I've got 25 people that love this thing and 25 people that say, oh, sod him, he's not doing the Hellcat anymore, I'm going to unsubscribe. That's absolutely fine, I don't mind. So anyway, I'll see you all soon. Thanks for subscribing, thanks for all your donations to PayPal and Patreon, and I'll see you soon with part 3. Bye for now.